Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. In Nier Reincarnation, let's do a fashion check for Dimos, the Hatcher versions. I've been looking forward to doing this for a while, but just never got around to it. And then his costumes, they really reference Western wear, which I am a big fan of. It's a uniquely American kind of style, but it's also tricky to do because it can kind of veer into costume territory. However, there is one kind of key component of looking like a cowboy that Dimos is missing, and that is cowboy boots. Most of his versions have some sort of combat boot, which makes sense for his character, since he is a soldier. He's not somebody that rides horses, so yeah, story-wise, not a big deal, but kind of fashion-wise, a little bit of a disappointment for me. But I want to show this anniversary Dimos first, because his boots are the closest to a cowboy boot. And I would say that there's maybe three kind of defining characteristics of a cowboy boot. One is the very pointy toe, two is the heel, and then the third is sort of the looseness around the calf. And then Western wear, cowboy wear, being very utilitarian. All of these different features of the boot, they have their meaning, and I will explain what those are now. Although I am looking at the point of the boot, and it's a little bit pointier than I remember, so maybe this can actually count as a cowboy boot. But cowboys, when they ride a horse, they usually use a saddle and stirrups. And then in order to help the cowboy get his foot into the stirrup more easily, the boot he will wear will have a pointy end, just to navigate getting in there more easily. A lot of people still have the misconception that a pointy shoe, or in a pointy shoe, all of the toes are jammed together. But the point of a pointy shoe, that's like extra beyond what you would have with a regular shoe. So that's all just empty space, and then the shoe is very comfortable in the front. Alright, and then once you get your foot into the stirrup, how do you get stability? You get that with the heel. The heel kind of acts as like an anchor to rest the foot on the stirrup so it doesn't, go back or forth. Foot doesn't fall off the stirrup. Foot does not go deeper into the stirrup, which would be bad. But if that worst case scenario were to happen, say you put your foot in the stirrup and then your heel goes in too, and your just leg gets in there, and then you fall off the horse and the horse is dragging you behind. That's where the looseness around the calf comes in. Of course, as with any shoe or boot, you want a good fit on the heel. You don't want a lot of heel slippage. But if you have that looseness around the calf, it can be easier to sort of wiggle out of the boot as the horse is dragging you along, and then you can stop the being dragged behind the horse. There's kind of similar principles to biker boots, especially if you're riding a motorcycle where the foot is kind of more like under you or ahead of you. Maybe you got that peg. The heel there can also help you stop on there. And then the height of the boot is important because the motorcycle can get very hot. The height of the boot can protect your lower leg from heat. So yeah, that's why I wanted to pick Anniversary Dimos first. He has kind of the most cowboy-ish boot of all of his costumes. But of all of Dimos's, or all the costumes in the game rather, this is a top 3 pick for me. And the reason why I like it is because it's a mix of a bunch of stuff. Like past and present, formal and casual, luxury and utilitarian. And we'll break it down here. But first of all, I want to look at his jacket. This kind of looks like a biker jacket. It also looks like a shorter bolero jacket, like what the original Mexican cowboys wore. Although those have like a much smaller collar with smaller lapels. So this would be like a double-breasted jacket, which like Marlon Brando wore in the Wild Ones, for example. But we're going to see other kind of Mexican or Spanish influences in other costumes on Dimos. But yeah, a leather jacket is not formal at all, but then just kind of the dark, sort of a luxurious color palette. And then some of the accessories being very kind of expensive looking adds to how this costume has sort of high and low and a contrast between the two. Like the shirt there, that actually looks pretty nice there. Also the scarf. And then the scarf is interesting, sort of proportions-wise, because with this shorter jacket, you know, it makes his kind of proportions higher, but with the longer scarf, it provides contrast to that. So very cool look there. And then open chest with the jewelry. That's very cool. But yeah, absolutely love this look. I also love that his hair is sort of in a little ponytail in the back. Almost like a modern-day samurai. Cool belt with chain accessories, ammo belts. Oh, and like an additional scarf there for more interest. So yeah, super cool costume here. Okay, next let's look at Launch Dimos. This is the one with the blind effect on the character skill. Maybe his most famous costume in the game. But here we have him wearing a hat. So we get to talk about cowboy hats here. As always, I like to do my hat fit, kind of judge and see if the hat is actually big enough for the head of the wearer. And this definitely looks good from the side. And from the front, that actually looks pretty big. I wonder if maybe the 3D modeler or the original artist kind of did a slant in order to accommodate the hair. But hair compresses, so that really shouldn't be an issue. Alright, and then, very important with cowboy hats is the crease on the top. And then depending on how that is, you know, that can kind of create a different impression from it, or even tell you where it comes from. And then the crease that Dimos has on this hat has a bunch of names. It's originally from the Mexican charros, I think you call it, those cowboys. But it's like a round top, and then you just indent it all the way around. I've also heard this called a telescope or a gambler's crease. I've also heard contradicting reasons for the why it's shaped like this, and how it sits kind of very close to the crown of the skull. I've heard that because it is lower to the head and then there's less air in there, that it will turn out to be cooler in the heat. But I've also heard having more air above your head in your hat will be cooler, so who knows. Kind of unusual about this hat is that it has very pronounced points in the back and the front. Typically cowboy hats are just round all the way. And then you might turn up the sides, turn down the front and back. But yeah, a big point in the front there. I wonder. That might get in the way of vision, but I guess it's a cool look here. But yeah, very flat brim on this hat. I think we're going to see more kind of curving or arching in future hats. Okay. And then let's look at his coat. He has this kind of additional sort of piece of fabric, sort of laying on his shoulders above his coat. What that is there for is to keep the rain away from the rest of his body. In the rain, your shoulders are going to take the most water, so they need extra protection for that. And looks like a double-breasted, but kind of similar to the Griff video that I just made about his handout versions. It terminates at the waist, almost like a morning coat of like a super formal tuxedo, and then has a tail in the back. I don't know that I've ever seen this in real life on a cowboy. The thing about cowboys when they ride on horses is that there's a horse between their legs, so that's a lot of mass. Typically, with coats that are very long, they will have a slit down the middle, so that, you know, the left side can go over the left side of the horse and the right side can go over the right. And it kind of exposes your rear, but it's more convenient for riding on a horse. But this coat doesn't look like it has a slit, so... Again, you know, Dimos, he's not riding horses, so it's not a big deal, but yeah. And then boots, more like a sci-fi-ish combat boots rather than cowboy boots. Still got a pointy toe on them, however. And some thigh guards or something. Okay, that's Abstract Dimos. Okay, next we have Bloodless Deus with the mask. The plague mask on there, very cool. I feel like with this costume, the 3D render is better than the illustrated one. Like, the illustrated one looks like it's a little bit unbalanced, as far as proportions, but this one seems better. But let's look at the hat here. This is maybe the largest hat of any of the Dimoses. This would probably be falling off of his head, unless you, like, you know, stuff to the inside with paper or more bands or something, but yeah. Then we got this crazy chain around it. The crease there, I don't know, it doesn't look like any kind of crease at all. It might just be sort of sewn that way. And then this has a totally round brim, but also flat. We don't see a lot of curvature. Not something you would typically see on cowboys, this kind of hat. And what is he wearing on his torso? Looks like a weird mishmash of kind of skin-tight stuff. He might be wearing the same trousers in all of his costumes. And again, let's see, knee pads and non-cowboy boots. These look like combat boots. Yeah, not a ton to say about this costume because it's not really based on menswear. And I feel like that as we go farther along, I'll have less and less to say about each costume. But feathers, that's kind of a recurring piece of his costumes. And then this version of Dimos has the nickname of Crow on the Japanese side. But yeah, Bloodless Deus, I am waiting patiently to get his awakening for. Alright, next we have Fractur Deus. In his illustration, he looks like a Bloodborne character. But here, actually looking at the 3D model, he looks more Western, so I was kind of relieved by that. Nothing against Bloodborne, but... Alright, let's do the hat check. Alright, we got the telescope or gambler crease again. And then this one, this has some curve in the brim. The front and then the back are kind of curved down. But actually, this kind of shape, where the front and the back are kind of lower, it improves the aerodynamics of the hat so that it will stay on if you are on a galloping horse. Your hat won't fly off as easily. And actually, there are other certain types of creases, like where there's one sort of like valley, you know, going down the middle. That can also help keep the hat on. But yeah, very short brim on the left and right. So it kind of creates a sleeker look. But the size of the crown is still good for the size of his head, I think. But yeah, definitely a more compact hat compared to some of his others because of the gambler's crease and then also the shorter brim on the sides. And then more feathers in the belt there. That's cool. Here we have kind of the remains of a cloak. That's a cool look. No shirt, looks like. Same trousers as usual. And kind of a sleeker, slimmer lower half to his body. No gigantic thigh guards or shin guards. But again, still no cowboy boots. That's cool. Yeah, kind of a cool version. Didn't have a long lifespan in the game. He was a good supporter for subjugations, but then Lacrima Lavania came out. Alright, here we have Bloody Dimos. This will be the last Dimos that we look at on this account, and then the last costume we'll look at will be the summer version on my JP account. Alright, but hat check. Let's see, so... that might be the telescope crease, or the hat just might be sewn that way. But this one has a more kind of a typical kind of roundness to the brim, where the sides are curved up. And this hat also looks very large from the front. Again, probably to accommodate the hair, which we wouldn't have to do in real life. Front to back also looks pretty big, yeah. But yeah, much more typical to have the sides of the brim up rather than just flat these days. Okay. Another kind of tattered remains of a cloak there. Some belts around the middle. And very full proportions on the legs there. I don't know, lots of ammo or something. And then Interesting boots. They almost look like buckle boots, but are just kind of left open. Yeah, I think the most interesting thing about this costume is going to be the hat. Okay, let's switch over to my JP account, look at the summer version. Okay, and we got the summer version. Totally different from all of the others. No hat either. Almost no shoes. It's got some strappy sandals there. That's cool. I think the most interesting thing about this costume is the Hawaiian shirt. For one thing, this collar is very unusual. Usually we will see a notch in the collar of shirts, but this does not look like it has any notch. It just goes straight from the bottom, from the seam, goes all the way up. And so if he were to close this, it would overlap over his neck. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just very, very unusual these days to see. Maybe almost more like a jacket rather than a shirt. And then sleeves, they come to a little bit above the elbow, although I wonder if they are cut off. Yeah, they do. They do look tattered, at least. But around his trunk, that is definitely a kind of a shortened shirt there. But proportionally, it works with all of his other costumes. They're all about at that same height, you know? Make his legs look very long. I feel like if he wore this shirt and, you know, it covered up his rear, for example, it would not be as flattering a look overall. And then the hat. Okay, I'm glad that this is here, because looking at all of the other hats on Dimos, they look like wool or maybe fur felt. But this is a straw hat, which is actually a very common material to make cowboy hats out of, because it is cooler in the hotter months, of course. This one does not look like it has a crease. It looks like it is woven so that it has that flat top in there. But like woven cowboy hats, you can also shape them so that they will have creases like the ones that I described earlier. And then kind of a tie around his neck. Very shallow hat, so in that sense it's kind of similar to the gambler crease hats that he's been wearing otherwise. I'm a little sad that he didn't tie up his hair in a high ponytail. I thought that would have been a good chance to do that, but oh well. But yeah, I think this costume reinforces the idea that Dimos is the hunk of Nier Reincarnation. Okay, that'll do it for my fashion check of Hatcher costumes for Dimos. Later I'll do one for his handout costumes, and there's actually a lot of interesting stuff in there too. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.